Hey y'all, it's Lorrie. I'm the creator of the Relief and Transformation Recovering from Long COVID and ME/CFS online course. It's also a coaching course. And I have a confession to make today, actually. I have been playing around with AI, artificial intelligence, to help me with some of my writing, with writing some of these videos and things like that, because it's a lot. I do a lot of writing. And it's really great, but it also gives you some really funny results sometimes. So I just have to read you this first paragraph because it's very cinematic. Welcome to our journey into the psychobiome, a fascinating look at the relationship between our brains, our bodies, and the microbiome, the trillions of microscopic organisms that inhabit our bodies. So it's very well written, but it just sounds kind of stilted to say it. I feel like I'm, starting at the beginning of a movie, of a documentary or something. So having said all of that, let's take a look at your psychobiome and what it is, why it's so important, and how the health of your psychobiome when you have long COVID, when you have ME/CFS, does affect your emotional and mental health. First, let's talk about your microbiome. Now, this is a term, a collective term for the community of microbes that live within our bodies. When people talk about the microbiome, they're usually talking about the intestinal microbiome, but you have microbes all throughout your body. Now, these microbes, they have their own systems, they have their own different communities, they talk to each other. And in fact, just think about this, the total weight of the microbes in your body right now is more than the weight of your brain. So some people use the term, your gut brain, or sometimes we say, what do you feel in your gut, or what do you think in your gut? And, in terms of how much weight, literal weight it carries, it's actually more than our brains. But now, and this might blow your mind, it totally blew mine when I learned about it. Let's take a look at your genes. You have around 23,000 genes in your cells. Those are your genes. Now, how many genes do the microbes in your body have? They have over 2 million unique microbial genes. Those are in your microbiome. Those are in your body right now. Over 2 million. That's a lot. And in fact, the former National Institute of Mental Health director, Dr. Tom Insel, said to the New York Times that we are, at least from the standpoint of DNA, more microbial than human, right? 2 million versus about 26,000. So when you think about it that way, does it matter whether we have parasitic microbes or whether we have healthy, helpful microbes in our bodies, and how much of each of them we have? Heck yeah, you betcha, right? Now, scientists have been looking at the connection between the microbiome and our mental states for a while, but it just hasn't gotten a whole lot of notice. Now, in recent years, they've started to discover the powerful influence that our gut microbiota can have on our mental and emotional health. So, for example, UCLA, they did a study recently to see how the microbiome affects our emotions and our mental states. And they found that the bacteria in our gut can produce neurotransmitters, that they do produce neurotransmitters, the things like serotonin and dopamine, as well as neurotoxins. And we're going to talk about those neurotoxins in another video, because those neurotoxins are responsible for the emotional roller coaster, for the depression, the anxiety, the brain fog, the memory issues, et cetera, et cetera, et cetera. Not even going into the physical stuff, the other types of toxins. All those symptoms that are long COVID and ME/CFS and fibromyalgia and other chronic illnesses. And those neurotoxins, of course, have a direct effect on our mood and behavior. I just remember from when I had severe ME/CFS that I did feel like I was on an emotional roller coaster. I either was super depressed or I wanted to rip everybody's head off that was around me, even if they were not being annoying, which sometimes they were, but even if they weren't, and just anxious, just terror even for no good reason. I wasn't being chased by a lion. Now, let's go back and talk about the healthy microbiome. This same study, this UCLA study, also found that a healthy microbiome can produce what they're calling psychobiotics. And these are compounds that can help to reduce anxiety and depression. So, for example, for some people, probiotics have been found to reduce stress, to improve mood for some people with depression. So that's great news, right? But the thing is, what they are missing there is that just taking a powerful probiotic is not going to work for everyone. And it's probably not going to work long term for most people who are dealing with these issues, because it depends on the parasite, on the body's parasite load. So if a person's body has a large parasite load, then those parasites are going to outweigh those healthy microbes. And taking the probiotics is actually going to make things worse, because it makes those parasites release more toxins. And well, we'll leave it at that for right now, but it can actually exacerbate the symptoms. So there really needs to be, they're not getting the whole picture, which is what I find happens a lot of times, unfortunately, in the medical community. Not with all doctors and researchers and stuff like that, but with the vast majority of them right now, unfortunately. So this connection between our microbiome and our mental health is just even more clear as they're doing this research, as they're doing these studies. And if you have a chronic illness like long COVID and ME/CFS, you know that for a fact, because you're probably dealing with these things that we've been talking about, all sorts of emotional upheaval and mental issues. And to bring it home, I'll tell you a little bit more about my story, and then we'll wrap it up for you. But I've had lifelong fibromyalgia until I healed that about a year ago now. And also up until my probably early 30s, I'd been struggling with depression and anxiety for my whole life. I remember when I was a little girl asking my dad to tickle me because I was so depressed and anxious that it was uncomfortable to be tickled, but that was the only thing that could seem to kind of break me out of that. So, over the years, I tried all sorts of medications, antidepressants, anti-anxiety. Nothing really worked consistently, and the side effects were horrible. And in fact, a lot of them made me feel even worse. And then when I tried to come off of them, it absolutely wreaked havoc on my mental and emotional health as well as my physical health. Just horrible to think about that. But what I found was that, and this is where the ME/CFS was the severe ME/CFS that I had when I was in my 20s for about 8 years. It was a real blessing for me because I learned how to eat better. And at that point, it was what's called a paleo something diet. I can't remember. It's not paleo keto. So I was on the right track, and I cut out all of the wheat, all the gluten, all the, the sugars. I cut down way, way down on my carbs and stuff like that. And so because of that, my emotional state, my mental health state got so much better. And it took some time, but it got so much better. Now, I still had other symptoms until I discovered how to fully address the underlying root cause of parasites. And so I would still have, I was still on a bit of an emotional roller coaster, but it was between the way that I was eating and some of the meditative things that I'd learned and the brain retraining that I'd done and things like that. It was a whole lot easier. Still a roller coaster, but a whole lot easier. Then once I fully addressed those underlying microbe issues, that underlying microbiome imbalance issue, and fully addressed those parasites, it was incredible. I was like, oh my gosh, I'm naturally a happy person. I'm naturally a positive, enthusiastic, energy-filled person. I'm a naturally loving person. It's difficult to irritate me now because before I was dealing with all those neurotoxins. I was dealing with all of those antibiotics for the mind. So there's a lot of great research being done right now about the psychobiome, and I really love that word. And some researchers are even playing around with creating psychobiotics, right? So like probiotics, but specifically for emotional mental health, and sometimes with good results. But again, they're missing a piece, right? You don't put in the good stuff until you've gotten the bad stuff out of the way. So though it does have some positive effects for some people, for most people, I would even venture to say it's not going to have lasting effects until they address the parasites. And those are the things that are causing those issues to begin with. So those psychobiotics, those probiotics are just not going to be enough to get your microbiome back into the balance. Are they a part of the picture? Yes, for sure. But your body's actually going to create those once you've gotten rid of the parasites and have gotten things back into order. Now, I talk about some of the specific toxins that parasites create that cause that emotional and mental roller coaster and other symptoms in another video. And then I also have another video about how we treat it in the Relief and Transformation course. And that is exactly what we do in my Relief and Transformation course for long COVID and ME/CFS and any other chronic illness. I show you how to create your treatment game plan so that you can get rid of all those parasites and all those toxins that they create, and you can rebalance your microbiome, which equals, that happy psychobiome. And again, to me at least, the physical stuff, yeah, it sucked hard, but the emotional stuff was, and that mental health roller coaster was just the thing that was heartbreaking and was the most absolutely difficult thing. So that's, that's one of the huge gifts of these illnesses, is that you're going to know how to take care of that. And people find, my students, I've had students say, at the beginning of the course, well, I think I'm just an anxious person. And by the time that they have finished all their treatment cycles, they're like, I had no idea. I had no idea how easy life can be, right? Because you're not dealing with all of those parasites and the toxins and stuff. So for the Relief and Transformation course, there is a link to the wait list below in my bio. We do limit the number of seats because I like to work with people in a very intimate, sometimes even one-on-one way, but within the group setting. So thank you for being here with me. And I hope that you learned something fun and hopefully inspiring as well today. And I will see you again here soon.